I was born in Mexico City. I was raised in Mexico City and live in Mexico City, which is landlocked, high in altitude, and a little bit away from the coast. So what does that have to do with oil spills? Not much. I will tell you a little story related to my life and how that defined what I am now today as an oceanographer. The passion that I have for what I do appeared when I was in high school. It was defined because I loved so much arts, and I was not allowed to work in arts. My father wanted me because he was a scientist. He was raised in the coast. I used to visit my grandparents in the Gulf of Mexico and during summer holidays. But he wanted me to be a scientist. So I had to define what I wanted to be in life, and that was something that kept me awake even at 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning that I was really passionate about, and I decided to go into oceanography. So it was a defining point that I liked deep sea biology, that I liked the tools that are used, and I was really, to me, that was something that was really, that lured me to define the future. I had been recently hired by the Institute when we received this invitation to go to a cruise, and this was a cruise in the Sea of Cortez. The cruise was a 15-day cruise in which Mexico collaborated with France, and the university would take the 2 ships to the Sea of Cortez. I had already dove before with submersibles with the Harbor Branch Institute in the Caribbean, and I had been and seen the ocean down to 500 meters. So part of my dream had come true. But this was really luring. This was a deep dive down to 2,200 meters, down to the abyss, to see the hydrothermal vents. For those that don't know what a hydrothermal vent, it is like a warm spring down in the deep ocean floor where the water goes into cracks from the same sediment into down to the magma chamber, and then it is exposed and it forms big mineral edifices, structures. And these structures host places for animals that attach, worms, and some animals that like to feed on worms and on the bacteria that grow on that minerals. So for me, that was very interesting to see because I had only seen that in books. To me, that was really impressive. And it was a very first experience. I was just recently hired. I was very young. So I was eager to go, and I was ready. It was complicated. All the process and the paperwork was complex because of the 2 languages, because of the differential cultures. And therefore, on arriving to the site, to me, that was already a great experience. The 2 ships, the university ship, which was smaller, it was a middle-sized class ship, a 50-meter ship. It was very brand new at the moment. It was not very well equipped, but it was for us very important that our ship moved into that site to collaborate with the French ship, which was an oceanic class ship, 100 meters long or 75 meters long, with a submersible and different crews. So we arrived and we were eager to receive the meeting. So we received this note that we were ready for the next day, and it was my dive. So they wanted to brief me, and they arrived with a program. They explained us how the dive was going to take place. And it was almost a 2-hour briefing, explaining also the French scientists that were along and the Mexican scientists that came with us. So as a young scientist, to me, this was interesting to see a new way of working. But probably the most interesting thing for people that have never been in a submersible is that among the briefing, the note was, there is no bathroom. And the dive takes 6 hours, at least work, plus an hour to go down, another hour to go up to the surface. So you have this 8 hours and no bathroom. And you have to deal with that. And at the moment, to me, that was not a problem, really. And I just said, well, I don't eat, I don't drink water the day before, and that's it, and I can solve that problem. But probably many of you are just looking and anxious. And what can you do after 8 hours? I mean, you will be sitting there and not moving to any other place. Well, for me, that was not a problem. And that night was a great night because I was making plans. I wanted to know what I was going to wear for the next day because I didn't know how cold it was going to be down there. And to me, it was more important to think 6 hours of comfort, to sit in a place that I felt it was important for me for work, that all all what I wanted to do could be done, and I could do it well. And I just devoted my attention to that, which is what to wear and how to take notes on the next day. Because that was important for this following reason. The crew members on board of the submersible spoke French. I had to take notes in English, but I had to communicate with them in French. And they had to do what I wanted to do and what they needed to follow my dive plan. So I had now a dive plan. I had a set of activities to do, but now I have to think how to communicate with the French crew members at the same time, take notes in English, and record in French. And they had to take photographs and video. So to me, that was probably the most important and the priority things that I have to do at the moment. I went to sleep. I didn't drink anything at night. I went to the bathroom. I woke up early in the morning, and I woke very calmly. I was not nervous. I was really excited to do something different, excited, imagine to see something that you have never seen, to have that great experience. So the two ships stayed at a certain distance because of regulations and navigation. And we took a small inflatable boat, a Zodiac, and the Zodiac was to leave the ship at dawn. So starting the day, I was ready. I had taken a shower. I was ready with my clothes. I didn't take much, just a sweatshirt so that I could be warm, and some tennis shoes, and that was it. We took the boatswain, whose name was Toto. He had a very big family. Everybody in the boat was called Toto. I think Toto was the last name, actually, but everybody was Toto. So this man, Toto, was the one who took me with the Zodiac from the Mexican research vessel to the French vessel. And it should not be a very long ride, only 20 to 30 minutes. The dawn was very nice. It was a little bit cool, a cool breeze only. It was dusky in the day. The sea was awakening, so the ocean was really flat. And he said, it will be a smooth ride. We can go really fast to the other ship, and we will be there in no more than 20 minutes. So I hold my ponytail in my hair, and I said, well, he's going to go fast. I don't want to have my hair in my face. My hair was not that long at that time, but I didn't want to have my hair in my face. So I decided to just hold my ponytail, and there we went. After 10 minutes, I saw the French ship further away, and I looked around, and the other ship, the Mexican ship, looked also far away. I don't know what was happening, but for some reason I thought maybe some current is pulling us away, is making us drift. And I asked him, is there a current that is drifting us away? And then he said, no, just listen. I think something is happening. What was happening is we had a leak, a very fine leak, going very slowly initially from between the stitches of the boat. And the air, we were losing air and tension on the boat. And it was the only two of us. We were not carrying much. But it was really interesting to see that the ships really looked farther and further away. And the fizz of the fissure increased in loudness. And I thought, well, we are really losing tension on the boat. And this is going to eventually lose completely the air. And the swaying boat man Totos told me, "Don't worry, things will be fine. And trust me, you will get to your dive in time." Okay. And I saw him pulling out the pump and starting to pump air into the boat. And I was sort of like looking and said, what can I do? And he said, why don't you take and get in charge of the engine? And you just take us to the French ship. So I felt myself like a big captain and took the boat into the direction of the French ship, although it looked further and further. And he was pumping at the same time, pulled out the radio and started calling the bridge at our ship in Mexico in Spanish, and told them that we were losing, we had a leak of air, and that the boat was slowly getting without air. And I didn't know anything else after that. But he said, don't worry, Dr. Escobar, things will be fine. Trust me, you will get in time to your dive. They will not let you down. You will have the possibility to see the deep ocean floor. If we were sitting on a little Zodiac boat, the depth was 2,500 meters, and the only thing I could think is, my goodness, the seafloor is down there. And I don't know how long the boat will remain floating until somebody rescues us. So to me, that was what my mind was busy at. And then I suddenly saw the French ship maneuvering. We saw that there was a boat being downloaded put into the water. And then we saw a little boat moving at big speed in our direction. And in maybe 15 minutes, we saw the boat really close. But then again, we saw the French ship coming behind the little boat. So we got rescued from the French, and they brought along the Zodiac with them, and they pulled us on the French ship, and it was really nice. The dive started in time. I went into the submersible, and we were there, and I had the dive. Well, going into the submersible is a very nice experience. I have to tell you, for those that have never been, it is really incredible. The way down is just like a story of Jules Verne's of going to the 20 leagues in the ocean, in which you see that the light is dimming slowly, and it's being slowly you lose light, but then you see the twilight, and then slowly the darkness, and that light is replaced by bioluminescent creatures that appear slowly once in a while. This is really impressive. It takes almost an hour to reach the seafloor, and during the way down, we were recording different characteristics of the water, writing things. So my mind was completely occupied in just watching the light of bioluminescence and taking notes. When we arrived, the French communicated to the surface, said that we had finally reached the seafloor. And it was really nice because what they said is, we are going to turn the light, we are going to turn the engine off, and we are going to have lunch. And that was it. This is our last communication for the next hour or something like that. So they brought the plates. This was porcelain plates, forks and knives of silver, glass cups, a bottle of wine, and they opened it. We had a 3-course meal down at 2,500 meters. And we started with salad, with a soup, a very creamy soup. It was a lobster bisque. And then we had filet with potato. They didn't want the food to get cold, so they wanted to have their meal warm. And everything was accompanied with a glass of wine. There was a dessert, cheeses, and if somebody was hungry, they had chocolate bars. So that was really great. During the time we were having the lunch, we were talking about what type of wines there were in France, what type of wines were in Mexico, if we had a garden, if we grew up our own salad, what we thought about French cuisine. And I told them that Mexican cuisine was a mixture of French cuisine with Mexican and Spanish cuisine as well. And I told them that we had had a French invasion. So they were happy to know that the French cuisine had succeeded. That we, there were a couple of things that were in common. What other things? So when we finished to have lunch, we proceeded to communicate to surface, and then we were able to start working. We worked hard time, the 6 hours that continued, and until we finished, and we had a very good communication. I could communicate with them perfectly in French, and I could also write my notes in English. I had my tape in French, and we collected all the samples, we took the pictures, and we took the video that was needed. Everything was a success, and we went up to the surface. We left the ballast on the sides of the submersible, and that allowed us to go very smoothly up to the surface until we reached the surface. And a diver came to say hello to the porthole and said, "Welcome back," with a little note. And it was really nice to see that. And you saw, we felt when they put the cables that allowed the ship to pull the submersible back, and we could see everybody standing and just watching everybody, what was going on in submersible, taking pictures. We were not going to appear in those pictures because the portholes don't allow that. So that was not a good thing. But when I came down of the submersible, it was a big surprise to me. There were 2 people waiting for me as I came out of the submersible. I received buckets of very cold, icy water with a little bit of garbage in it. And that was my baptism, because it had been my very first dive at that depth. So it was really nice to see that. But very cold, and I really wanted to go to the toilet. So nowadays, I don't think they do that. What we do is we present them a margarita. A couple of years ago, I was the person that handed the margaritas to the person coming out of the submersible. So that was a great experience. And I think that great experience has shaped very much how I do the science I do today in the Gulf of Mexico and the studies I do in the Gulf of Mexico. A lot of the collaborative efforts that I do, we have a lot of similar type of experiences. We have been working on the deep sea diapiers in the Gulf of Mexico with other groups. I invite people to come over to our research vessels to collaborate with us from other different countries. And every time we do that, we really have a lot of fun, but we also take all the cautions we need to take. We check whether the Zodiac is working. It will not lose air. All security is always now taken care of. The other thing is I try to always be very generous when I go out to sea with people. So in such a way that they receive what I received at that cruise. A lot of learning experience, a lot of knowledge from everyone, from the boats, from Toto to the crew, to everyone on board. So what I do is I also transmit to my students that is the way of doing science. And they learn a lot from me because they see all this passion, probably, because we work at 2 o'clock in the morning or at 4 o'clock in the morning, and they are there with a lot of enthusiasm, arranging the equipment, assembling the equipment, cleaning sediment cores, and we do that all together, and we have a lot of fun. So fun is part of that complex system, which is fun, generosity, and security. What else can I say about that? I think the scientific knowledge that we gather it with all those things that are common in every single cruise. And we have to transmit that throughout our teaching and our scientific experience. In that way, the programs that I have created now as a director include, among other things, how we can transmit that information to other scientific fields. And in that way, I try that some of the cruises take other disciplinary people in the cruise. For instance, students from the art, music, humanities, so that those people can also learn to see and learn from the ocean. And maybe the ocean can inspire their work, their thesis, and eventually that will be a learning experience for the future for them to transmit to their own students or to their own work. In my point of view, I see that the ocean is a transversal line to different fields. And in one extreme, I see us as scientists, and at the other extreme, the fishermen. So in between are all these other people that have to learn about the ocean. Living in Mexico City at 2,500 meters of altitude is very difficult to transmit this to students, especially to students of undergraduate degrees, because we are in altitude. They don't see the ocean unless they see it in holidays or unless they see it on TV. So one of our programs includes those students, not only those in Mexico City, but those students that live along the coast. Some of our laboratories have noticed that kids that are born at the coast but live across the four-lane highway, these kids don't get to know the ocean in their life. What happens is that their school is across, and so they never have to go to the ocean. The parents work all week, and on the weekends they have their own chores at home. So the kids stay at home or in that area, for instance, in the case of Yucatan, the rainforest. So they know the rainforest well, but they don't know the ocean, even if the ocean is only 1 kilometer away or 2 kilometers away. Nowadays in Mexico, as mostly in many places in the world, the coastline is private. It belongs almost to the tourism and to the buildings related to tourism. So children born in those areas seldom get to know the ocean. We have a program now in our laboratories that allows kids to go to our laboratory to learn, and we explain them what the ocean is, what we do in ocean sciences, and we take them to walk in the ocean, at least that they get their feet wet, so that they know and get the experience. And they will take certainly their parents in the next weekend to the ocean. So what we are trying to do is make this a way that they can transmit it to other children and invite other families to come and visit us and learn from that. I'm not doing that alone. It's a set of my colleagues in the different laboratories who have started that program, and we're trying to do it together with other scientists that come from Mexico City and go there. So this is what I have to say, and I thank you very much for this opportunity.